Hi, my name is Ivans, and today we'll be exploring my first-person shooter M4A1 sound design and implementation inside of an Unreal Engine project using FMOD. Today I want to show you how I actually did this. Make sure to use the timestamps if you need to. Alright, let's dive into this. The gun itself had two shooting modes, semi-automatic, which is single-fired shots, and full auto. The way we had decided to approach this was to design the single shots for semi-auto, which makes sense, and the full auto loops, that would be three variations of loops to start with. FMOD was sometimes playing more shots that were actually fired because it was not having enough time to trigger the release of the full auto loop. So to avoid this, we had to add a bit of a delay in the beginning, which is not really noticeable, but it does help to give FMOD more time to actually trigger the stop of the event. And last thing, of course, we would have to design separate gunshot tails for both outdoors and indoors, as those are pretty detailed and the reverb send is not going to do the trick for those, unfortunately. But I'll talk about this later, and for now, let's start with the design part. I was using Ableton Live because of its warp mode. It was very convenient for the one-shot transients that were arranged according to the BPM. We have the logic that we have a slightly different first shot. So the one shot is a bit more prominent and the following loop is a tiny bit quieter. I have here three variations of the full auto loop. This is kind of the manual approach of doing this. There's the first loop being tweaked around sequentially, rearranging the sequence of the shots so that they don't sound the same. There's probably ways to do this faster, but since I'm just using the native Ableton solution, this is the way I did it. And yeah, this was the initial sound I've had for the M4. I didn't like everything about it, but I did like the idea of the way it sounds. So I basically took that, placed on the grid, and reinforced with some extra samples. So here are all the sounds and tracks that I've arranged together that make up the sound of the full auto shooting. Sounds really powerful, meaty, pretty happy with the result. And then there are some Foley sounds that I was using to reinforce the tactile sound design. I was pretty much going for the way that Battlefield did this. They have really nice Foley work in all of their shooting and also nice tails, which brings us to the tails. Unfortunately, I only made one of those tails, but it does sound pretty good. I would also love to add some more Foley effects. For example, the high-pitched metallic ringing of this of the flying coats and whatnot, the ammunition. And I also took the same tail and put it into a granular synthesizer to create a layer that would be played along the main shooting loop, giving us a bit of this extra reverb. And lastly, we have some slapback echoes that are basically a different kind of M4 shots that I'll be triggering sequentially after the shots were fired. And in the implementation, we'll make sure the amount of reflections matches the amount of shots fired. And now we are taking all these events to FMOD, where first I have created the semi-auto shooting event, where we will just have the one shots. It's nothing special for now, and let's just move on to the full auto mode, where things get a bit more interesting. So here we can see the full auto loops we had created earlier. And they're starting with the second shot, actually, as we would have the first shot fired from the semi-auto event. And on the second sequential shot, we will be switching to the full auto event. And here you can see we have the main full auto loops that I've exported separately in the multi-instrument. And right below those, we have the Foley effects, the reverb. The reverb will be also affected by the reverb parameter. And this would also control the tail. So when we are inside, we don't have this tail, and we're outside, we have the tail we've had created. At this point, we're using just some temporary reverb for the indoors, as I didn't have time to design the actual tail for that. And there's also the command instrument that is turning off the tail from the first shot so that it does not collide with our full auto loop. And there's a transition region that is being activated upon the stop of the event, which brings us to the tail, where we have the actual tail playing. And then we also have the shots fired parameter that I was talking about previously. So the way it works is it's basically counting the amount of shots fired from 1 to 8. 8 is the maximum because there is no need to do more. And this gives us the slapback reflections from the environment. With each shot, we are incrementing this parameter by 1. You can see that here in the command instruments. This is how it works. If we fire 2 shots, we'll have 2 slapback reflections. If we fire 3 shots, we'll have 3. And so on, it goes up to 8. 8 is the maximum, and then it's just 8 from there on. And there's also a bit of a extra reflection on the end. There is just 4 of those maximum, so from 1 to 4. I would absolutely love to add more details, especially environmentally controlled. As I said, unfortunately, we didn't have quite much time to do all of this. And at this moment, I don't even have any processing on. This is just the raw sounds the way they are. The only thing I might have is a sidechain compressor that is ducking the tail so that it's not being placed over the main shooting sounds. That's about it. And finally, let's open up the Unreal project. We'll be taking a look at the FMOD function responsible for the shooting part that I've put together. First, we're checking what fire mode is active, and then we trigger the corresponding section, either semi-auto or full auto. Let's start with the semi-auto. First, I'm just printing the amount of ammo in the rifle to see if it works right. Since the project was multiplayer oriented, we have to check if it was fired locally or not. In our case, it's going to be local. So here we play the first person shot event, which is what we've had in FMOD, attached to the rifle skeletal mesh. Then we're checking if the rifle has a suppressor or not, setting the corresponding parameter in FMOD. We don't currently have an implementation for the suppressor. That would be a separate shot sound, but for now it's just technical implementation, and this is pretty much it for the single shot. With the full auto, we have a logic that makes sure the first shot fired in a row is going to be the one from the semi-auto section. You can see the shot counter integer, which is counting how many shots were fired in a row. It gets reset to 0 with each time the firing is stopped. People would often one-tap with a full auto mode, therefore this configuration has proven to be more stable rather than triggering the full auto loop each time for the first shot. When the second shot is fired, again we're checking if it's controlled locally. I play the corresponding event, in our case the first person full auto event. Then I create an object reference to reference it in other sections of the blueprint, including this one here where I'm checking if we're using the suppressor or not, and adjust the corresponding parameter. And in the shooting graph here, we have a stop fire event where I'm resetting our shot counter and stopping the full auto loop. And when we run out of ammo, I'm stopping the loop as well. And we also have a reverb zone for when we're inside the building, which was more of a prototype at the moment. Simply adds some reverb to the gun foley sounds and removes the outside tail. And this is mostly how the whole project works. If you'd like to check out the project for yourself, as well as get some of the sounds I was using in the design, I challenge you for a mini game. To win the M4A1 sounds, there are 26 letters M on my website, but one of them is special. If you're too boring to play games, you can just send me a couple bucks on PayPal and I'll send you the link. Just make sure to mention your email address. And that's it for the overview. I hope you found something interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.